Hey guys, it's Snowbiter, and this is a replay I had with the AMX 13105 on Erlenberg. The 13105 has actually been one of my favorite tanks to play recently. I've been enjoying it a lot. It's similar in a lot of ways to the Batchat, which, as I've talked about before, has always been one of my favorite tanks. So it's not too surprising that I would like this tank as well. The big difference between the two tanks is that the 13105 has a 3-shot autoloader, while the Batchat has a 5-shot autoloader, and only taking that into consideration, I actually like having the 3-shot autoloader better because with the shorter reload, you have a lot more flexibility. But the trade-off for that added flexibility is that the 13105's gun penetration is significantly worse than the Batchat. I think the base pen on the gun is only 234, and its heat pen is 280, so that limits you a lot in the kinds of engagements that you can get into. And if you're taking the same shots with the 13105 as you are with the Batchat, you're going to bounce a lot more often. And then on top of that, the 13105 only has 1400 HP, so as much as the Batchat is already a pretty unforgiving tank to play, the 13105 is even more unforgiving because with 1400 HP, especially in a matchup like this one, you have to be very careful with how much you expose yourself because you just can't afford to make any bad trades with this tank. Anyway, this is a game on Erlenberg, as I mentioned before, and it's actually an assault game, so I'm on the defending team here. And I'm going to go to the 9-line this game. Generally, when I'm playing defense on this map, I like to play the 9-line because I think it's easier to defend the cap circle from the eastern side of the map. So, as a defending team, I would rather have control of the 9-line than the 2-line. And then, because the spawns are a bit different on assault mode compared to standard or encounter, it seems to me that the attacking team often has an easier time pushing the 2-line, or at least it's a lot harder to actually hold that area as the defending team. So, I find that I tend to have more success on this map by playing the 9-line. So I've gone to this bush in D9, and I like playing this position because it lets me get early lights on tanks like that E4 that are late crossing to the 9-line, and then it also gives me a good angle on the tanks that play that ridge in F0 where that Leopard 1 is. And because I'm playing a light tank like the 13105, which has pretty good camo, I can move forward into this bush without getting lit, which allows me to essentially get a free shot off on any tank in that position. So you can see me here, I'm waiting until I get a shot that I'm positive is going to hit the Leopard. So I put one shot into him. Unfortunately, my second shot derps there, and it was a bit of a risk for me to actually stick around because I knew that I was going to get lit there taking that second shot, and the Senna Higgs could have very easily hit me there. But I get a bit lucky. I was actually able to put my third shot into the Sen, and he misses his shot, so I'm able to get out of that situation without losing any HP and get a couple shots off of damage. Now, I'm already almost done with my reload, and I saw that this 140 was exposed in a bad position, so I moved forward slightly to make sure that as soon as I was reloaded, I could shoot him, and I'm able to get 2 shots into him to finish him off. Now, I could have reloaded here, but I figured in this kind of situation, it was pretty unlikely that I would be able to actually empty my full clip into any tank, so I decided to just wait until I went dark, and then I'm going to do the same thing again here. I'm just going to slowly move up into this bush without getting lit, and that gives me the chance to basically just get a free shot again into that Leopard. So I get my full clip off there again without taking any damage, and that's kind of the nice thing about this position is most of the actual brawling happens on the other side of this ridge, sort of more toward the 0 line. And so by playing this position, you can kind of get some flank shots on tanks where they're not really paying as much attention to you. So as I'm reloading, I spot this Batchat pushing on the 8 line toward me, and it looks like he's going to YOLO me, and so fortunately, I actually finished reloading before he pressed that hill on me because he does just drive straight into me, and since I reloaded just in time, I was able to get that first shot off. So I do lose about 500 HP, but because of the 13105's quick reload, I was able to take him out without sustaining any more damage than that. So really, that could have gone a lot worse than it actually did. And that's the sort of thing where a lot of times when I get pushed like that, I would get really tilted. But I think in this case, because I was able to pretty much punish the Batchat and deal with that situation about as well as I could have, it doesn't really end up screwing up the rest of my game. So, you know, ideally I wouldn't have lost that 500 HP, but I know that could have gone way worse than it actually did. So now again I'm reloaded, and I'm going to do the same thing as before to get another shot on that Leopard 1. And then I spot that grill moving toward the middle of the map, so I turn my attention toward him. And I have to be a bit careful here because while this position is great when you're only dealing with tanks on the 9-line or 0-line, you're pretty exposed to anything in the middle of the map, especially if you go too high on this ridge. So I have to be wary of the grill's presence there because, you know, if I were to try to peek toward the F0 ridge again, if the grill just happens to peek at the same time, he'll have an easy free shot on me, and I obviously don't want to lose that HP at this point in the game. Anyway, I almost got screwed there by timing, as the grill tried crossing between buildings right as I looked away, but I was able to react quickly enough, and I got a snapshot into him before he could get back into cover. And now I'm on reload again, and at this point I'm starting to feel kind of uncomfortable in this position because it looks like my team is going to lose control of the 9 line, or at least that corner at D0 where our Super Conqueror just died. And even though we still have a full health AMX in D9, I know that there's no way we can hold that position between just the two of us against all those heavy tanks. So I decided to fall back to these buildings. I wanted to check to see if that grill was pushing down the 7 line, but I don't spot anything there. And now, ideally, I'd like to be able to support this AMX here, but unfortunately, I have a clip of APCR loaded, so it's going to be tough for me to pen any of those heavy tanks. And I think I probably should have been a bit more patient with my shots here, because this E4 ends up sort of dive bombing this AMX. And I get one shot into his side after my first 2 shots missed, but I think if I'd been a little more patient there, I could have done a bit more damage. Now I'm reloading again, and I'm in a bit of an awkward situation because those heavy tanks, the E4 and Super Conqueror, are pushed up far enough that they could spot me from this distance. So I want to try to fall back more and put some more distance between me and them. Now we still have a 268 who's been sitting this whole time in A0. So I want to try to create a bit of a crossfire between him and me on those heavy tanks there. The Super Conqueror is low HP. I know he's a one-shot. So ideally I'd like to try to catch him out. And here he gets lit on this ridge. Now I still have ABCR loaded, so I want to make sure that I wait until I have a sure kill shot on him. I don't want to bounce my first shot and then he can angle his armor toward me. So I waited there for an extra few seconds just to make sure that I had a clear side shot. And I got the kill on the Super Conqueror. I put a tracking shot into the E4, but I got lit there, and I obviously don't want to peek back out, so I decided to force my reload again. And as I'm moving between buildings, I spot that really low HP Leopard, which allows the 268 to finish him off. So we've actually managed to slow down the enemy's push on this side. It's really just the E4 and the AMX left on the 9 line. And then that grill is probably still somewhere in the middle of the map. Now, I'm thinking that because of the crossfire setup between me and the 268, it's pretty unlikely that the E4 or Cent will try to push any further forward on the 9 line. And I know that if I stay low enough here on the 7 line, there's no way the E4 will be able to spot me from C9 or C0. And I should be able to use these buildings as cover from the 9 line bridge, so I decided to probe forward a little bit just to see if I can find that grill and potentially catch him by surprise, because I don't think the enemy will expect me to try to re-aggress his position. So there, I catch the grill while he is completely out in the open, and I put one shot into him. And then I saw that he missed his shot, so I poked back out, and I got my last 2 shots into him as well. I did get hit there by the AMX, but now I know that assuming the E4 is still around C0, he won't have a shot on me as long as I stick to the 7 line, so I should be able to safely retreat back without losing any more HP. Although I did take a bit of an exposed route there at the end because I didn't want to cut toward the river and give the grill a chance to potentially shoot me. But it works out so that I get back into cover without taking any more hits. And I actually spotted the AMX as I was falling back, so I decided once I'm reloaded to take a couple blind shots on the position where he was last spotted. And I think I actually might have hit him with that first shot because I didn't see any impact on the terrain there like I did with the second shot. You'll notice if you watch the replay closely that when I took that second shot, you can see the shell hit the fence next to that building. Whereas with the first shot, it just looks like the shell disappears. And when that happens, it often means that you hit a tank blind that was unspotted there. But anyway, at this point, there are only a couple minutes left in the game. My team has done a pretty good job halting the enemy team's attacks on each flank. And I decided here that, considering the 268 was still at full HP, and again, I'm thinking it's still pretty unlikely the E4 or AMX is going to push forward, especially when they think that I'm still supporting the 268. So I decided to relocate toward the 3 line, and then once that grill gets taken out, I decided I'm going to try to flank the E100 and mouse on the 2 line because there's nothing in the middle that's going to be able to spot me. So as long as I don't get caught out, like I almost did just there with that E100 when he backed up, but as long as I don't get spotted too early, I should be able to flank these 2 heavy tanks without any trouble. It's important whenever you're going for a flank that you try to delay the point that you get spotted as long as possible, because you want to give the enemy a minimum amount of time to react to your position. So here, I'm able to stay unlit until I'm basically right behind the E100 and mouse, which gives them pretty much no chance to turn around and shoot me. So I get free shots into their backs with no risk to me, and I'm able to take both of them out. And now this game is pretty much over. It's just a matter of cleaning up the last few enemy tanks. But anyway, hopefully you got a sense from this replay of some of the strengths of the 13105. As I mentioned at the start of this video, I love having the 3-shot autoloader because the shorter reload gives you so much flexibility compared to the bat chat. And generally, I find, you don't get into a lot of situations where you actually have the opportunity to take all 5 shots at once if you're playing the bat chat. So I found that the lower clip potential is rarely an issue with the 13105. The big trade-off is, I think, really just the lack of HP on this tank and the poor gun penetration. You have to be prepared to shoot a fair amount of heat with this tank, especially for matches like this where you're facing only tier 10s. This game actually, relatively speaking, wasn't too bad. I actually think I shot more APCR than heat in this game, which doesn't happen all that often for these kinds of matchups. But anyway, right now I'm trying to convince the girl next to me, since he has, I think, about 1500 HP, that he should just take the hit from the JPZ so we can actually kill him before time runs out. But he doesn't seem to be willing to do that, so I'm just waiting here hoping that maybe the E100 will be able to bait out the JPZ's shot so that I can just get this final clip off before time runs out. And there I see the JPZ shoot, so I peek out, and my first shot tracks the JPZ for no damage, but I'm able to connect the second shot in his lower plate and then the third shot on his side. So I got a couple more shots of damage in there right at the end, although unfortunately time runs out before we actually kill him. But anyway, there's the end of the replay, and now I'll show you guys the post-game stats. I got an ace tanker for this game, and I ended up doing a bit over 7.1k damage, so I think that blind shot on the Senax actually did connect, but a really solid game of the 13105, especially considering the matchup. I think it's often hard to be effective in those kinds of games playing a tier 10 light tank. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the video and the commentary. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.